It is the late 60s and the Soviet Union is about to launch the next great step in space exploration. But behind the scenes, engineers know the spacecraft is riddled with flaws. At the centre of it all is cosmonaut Vladimir Komarov, a man trapped between his duty to his country and the knowledge that his mission may cost him his life. This is the story of the Soyuz 1 mission, one that would end in one of the most tragic disasters in space exploration history, the first man to die during a space mission. The 23rd of April 1967, Kazakhstan, the Soviet Union. By the mid-60s, the space race between the United States and Soviet Union is at its height. NASA has its Gemini program, training astronauts for longer flights, spacewalks, and rendezvous in orbit. The Soviets, determined not to fall behind, design an advanced spacecraft called Soyuz, intended to eventually ferry cosmonauts to the moon. Soyuz 1 is the first manned flight of the Soyuz program and is crewed by cosmonaut Vladimir Komarov. Having turned 40 just a month ago, he was a Soviet test pilot, aerospace engineer, and now cosmonaut. In October 1964, he commanded Voskhod 1, which was the first spaceflight to carry multiple people. This mission will make him the first Soviet cosmonaut to fly in space twice. Launching from Baikonur Cosmodrome, Soyuz 1 lifts off into the sky atop a Soyuz rocket, but all is not as routine as some may have wished, with serious problems beginning to emerge. The vehicle is noted to contain over 200 known faults from both electrical and mechanical systems. At this stage, Soyuz is an immature and not fully developed spacecraft. Engineers have reported their concerns to higher-ups, but they are ignored, overruled by political pressure. Manufactured by the Experimental Design Bureau, abbreviated as OKB in Russian, the Soyuz 7K OK is the first generation of Soyuz spacecraft and was flown between 1967 and 1971. It is launched into space on top a Soyuz rocket. It is meant to be versatile, able to dock with other craft in orbit and support long-duration missions, but the program is in its relative infancy, rushed and plagued by delays, now launched under intense political pressure. The 50th anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution is approaching, and Soviet leaders want a dramatic victory in space to showcase their power and technological prowess. The spacecraft deploys into orbit, but one of its two solar panels fails to open, cutting power to half capacity. Inside the capsule, Komarov struggles with failing systems and rapidly draining batteries. Control is limited and the ship is flying blind. Despite the setbacks, Komarov tries his best to rectify the issues, but it is no use. Finally, over a period of 24 hours, the next day, on the 24th of April, officials on the ground finally make the decision to bring Soyuz home. Initially planned was for another spacecraft, Soyuz 2, to launch shortly afterwards and to dock with Soyuz 1. But with the first mission being called off, the second is also scrubbed. Komarov is on his own. After 17 orbits, controllers give the order to bring Soyuz 1 down. In order to return safely to Earth, a spacecraft has to enter the atmosphere at just the right angle. Too shallow and it will bounce off the upper layers like a skipping stone. Too steep and the friction of re-entry will cause it to burn up. For Soyuz 1, with all its malfunctions, this will be difficult. The Soyuz was equipped with 3 orientation systems. The primary astro-inertial guidance was rendered useless, blocked by the jammed solar panel. The second, an ion sensor system, proved unreliable and also failed. That left only manual orientation, but this can only be done on the sunlit side of the orbit. But the problems continue. During the re-entry burn on the 17th orbit, the faulty control system allows Soyuz to drift off course. The automatic system shuts down the retrofire prematurely, aborting the maneuver. Komarov will have to wait until the 19th orbit and try again. This will be the last attempt. Komarov carries out the manoeuvre and fires the retro rockets, but the spacecraft's unusual asymmetric design causes it to yaw during the burn. Once again, the automatic controls shut down the engines early, but the burn had lasted just long enough. Soyuz 1 is now committed to re-entry. As the capsule plunges into the atmosphere, the orbital and instrument modules separate, leaving Komarov inside the descent module, and soon the parachute sequence will begin. The drogue chute deploys, but fails to extract the main parachute from its container. Komarov releases the reserve chute, but it becomes entangled with the drogue chute. With no parachutes to slow it down, the descent module becomes a falling projectile. It strikes the ground at tremendous speed, flattening the 2-meter tall capsule to just 70 centimeters. The solid fuel landing rockets explode on impact, incinerating what little remained. The wreck is reduced to molten debris. Recovery teams rush to the site, but it is too late. Cosmonaut Vladimir Komarov is gone, the first man to die on a space mission. The descent module of Soyuz 1 relied on a system of parachutes for braking once it had re-entered the atmosphere, a drogue chute to decelerate and stabilise the capsule, then this in turn pulls out the large main parachute to bring it in safely to the ground. If the main chute fails, a reserve can be deployed as a backup. On Komarov's re-entry, the sequence began as expected. The drogue chute deployed, but the main one failed to extract from its container, jamming inside and never unfolding. When the rate of descent is too fast, the reserve parachute is triggered, but with the drogue still deployed, the reserve became entangled in the lines and never inflated. Both systems had failed, leaving the capsule with no way to slow down. Investigators later determined that the failure was due to design flaws and reliability issues in the parachute system itself. The main chute compartment made it difficult for the canopy to extract cleanly, and the reserve design allowed it to become fouled by the drogue. In effect, once the main failed, Komarov had no chance. The descent module was doomed. With no parachutes to slow its fall, Soyuz 1 slammed into the ground at over 140 km per hour. The 2-meter tall capsule was crushed to just 70 centimeters, and the impact triggered an explosion of its solid fuel landing rockets. The impact was unsurvivable. In later revisions of the Soyuz spacecraft, the design of the parachute system, as well as the other 200 plus faults, would be ironed out, and it would go on to be one of the most recognisable spacecraft in history, and is even still in use today, due to its high reliability and comparatively low cost. Although a successor is in development, named Orel, the Russian word for eagle. A monument commemorating cosmonaut Vladimir Komarov is located in a small park near the location of the crash, 3 kilometers west of Karabutak in the Orenburg Oblast. If you enjoyed this documentary and found it interesting, leave a like on the video as that helps me out a lot, and make sure you subscribe so you can catch future episodes as soon as I upload them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.